Hello everyone, and welcome to my first thoughts and impressions of the Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires demo. All of the gameplay you'll see in this video was captured on PS5, but you can download this demo right now and try it out for yourself on basically every platform if you so desire. So, I've played this demo for a good few hours at this point, so what do I think of it? Well, honestly, this demo was, in my opinion, absolutely awful. On top of that, it really did confirm my fears of what the game would be, and trust me, I didn't want it to be what it ultimately is, or at least what it feels like it's going to be. Now, of course, let me just say up front, I am aware this is a demo and it's not finalized and all that, so I suppose things could change a little bit before launch, although I highly doubt it. But let's quickly go over what the demo is and what you can do in it. It's definitely a modest demo, but you'll have access to a surprisingly in-depth character creator, a small tutorial on the basics, and then 2 different battles, although they are essentially the same battle, where one has you attacking a castle and the other has you defending it. And of course, there is an options menu for you to play around with and tweak if you want to. One thing I did want to note here is that this demo doesn't seem to have an English dub available, unless I missed it somehow. The standard Dynasty Warriors 9 game did have an English dub, but I doubt Empires will. In fact, I don't think the Empires versions of these games, I should say, have had an English dub since Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires, so yeah, I mean, that is something to consider. I think most of you are probably at least familiar with the Dynasty Warriors series, even if you haven't played any of the games. It's that 1 versus 1000 gameplay style where, you pick a character loosely based on ancient Chinese history, and you mow down thousands of grunt enemies on a variety of battlefields. There is some RPG elements to the series as well, like leveling up and acquiring new weapons, but they're predominantly a hack and slash action game. This series actually started off as a 1v1 3D fighting game, a lot like Tekken, but that was literally only the first game in the series. The second game in the series, Dynasty Warriors 2, was the start of the formula that fans of the series like myself enjoyed, and that was the 1v1000 gameplay I mentioned earlier. It's essentially a power trip for the player, and while it doesn't require a huge amount of thinking on any level really, the games have always been pretty fun. There have been some variations and spin-offs over the years, but for the most part the series has been pretty consistent all the way up to Dynasty Warriors 9, which released in February 2018. Dynasty Warriors 9 shifted the series into a big open world and changed the battle system around. You still had the 1v1000 gameplay, but it just wasn't really the same. Lots of people, myself included, thought that Dynasty Warriors 9 was easily the worst entry in the series, and it wasn't just because of the gameplay changes. Some of the biggest issues were actually the technical performance of the game and how the open world just didn't fit the gameplay at all. Not to mention the abundance of greedy microtransactions and the 3 season passes that each cost nearly as much as the main game. And I am very sad to say that the technical problems seem to have been inherited by the Empires version of the game, and they are just as bad, if not worse than before. You get an option at the start of the game to focus on frame rate or resolution. I generally always pick frame rate over resolution, and that's what I did here, although it was still terrible. It chugs pretty badly when there's a lot going on, the enemies move really awkwardly and seem to teleport around, and there's just this constant screen tearing which is incredibly unpleasant to look at. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that I couldn't count the instances of the screen tearing. It happened constantly, all the time. If you go back and look at the trailer for the Empires game, you can actually see screen tearing in the official trailer, which is just ridiculous. I mean, maybe it's supposed to be a feature or something, I don't really know. But yeah, the whole thing is just really not that nice to look at. I mean, if you look at anything past your character, like on the periphery of your vision, it just looks like everything's covered in Vaseline, and its fidelity is poor overall. And this is the thing, they could have at least tried to fix some of these issues between the games, but no, of course not. I mean, why would they? But I'm sure there'll be 3 season passes for you to enjoy, so that's cool. I just don't know what to say sometimes with these kind of games. I don't like to rant and rave about, games and publishers and all that kind of thing, and people that have been with my channel for a while, I think you know that, but this series is over 20 years old at this point, and I've had so much fun with it over that time, but then they just take it and corrupt it into some sort of just, like soulless corporate product, and I really hate that kind of thing. It's not even a game anymore, it's just a product for you to consume and move on. There's no passion put into it, at least that I can see, and there's barely any artistic direction. It's simply the minimum viable product. And personally, I don't even like the battle system that the two Dynasty Warriors games share, the standard one and the Empires version. I think that on paper, the battle system sounds pretty good, it seems to be a good idea, and to be fair, it does physically work, like the game does physically work, but it just doesn't feel like a Dynasty Warriors game. None of it does, in fact. The game feels like just a cheap imitation, but look, I'm sure some people out there who may be new to this series might just like how this works and think this is how all Dynasty Warriors games are, and if that's you, cool. You like what you like. But for me, as someone who's played these games for over 20 years, it just isn't right. I tried every character in the demo, and also I created a character as well, and they're all virtually the same. They all do the exact same thing, they all play exactly the same. Sure, their moves do look kinda different from each other, but they all function in exactly the same way. The Dynasty Warriors 9 game in particular wants you to juggle the enemy officers, and you can do that without really much effort at all. In fact, it's kind of how the system is meant to work. You basically hold down R1 and then press one of the 4 face buttons to do a special attack that either stuns them or launches them in the air or whatever it is you want to do. And then you combo with your standard attacks, and then you go back to R1 to do the special attack again, and you just carry on from there. There is a little bit more to it than that, of course, there's the Muso attacks and all these different things, but really, I'm not going to waste my time or yours explaining it any further because, you can see what's going on the screen. It's just really poor, and it just doesn't work as a Dynasty Warriors game, and as I said earlier, it doesn't feel like one. And that was pretty much my main problem with the standard Dynasty Warriors 9 game. It didn't play or, I guess, feel the same way as all the other games have up to this point, and that's not really a good road to go down when you're trying to appeal to long-time fans of a certain series. It's like if you took, God of War and turned it into a really poorly made strategy game or something. It just doesn't work. The demo itself doesn't really have a lot to do. It has the tutorial, the character creator, and 2 small battles, and that's about it. I did expect to see a little bit more of the menus and the map and, perhaps the home base as well. This is an Empires game, so I thought maybe I could pick a few battles and take over some of the land and all that, but sadly, no, that's not what you get to do in this demo at all. It's just, as I said, 2 small battles, and I guess they have shown some of the diplomacy stuff in trailers and stuff, but still, I would have liked to have tried it out for myself. Having said that, this is not a demo that I wanted to keep playing after the first battle anyway, so I guess they kind of saved me some trouble there. The only reason I really kept playing it was for the footage for this video, but I really didn't enjoy any part of it. Even the character creator doesn't work properly. I was messing around with the armor and the clothes, and basically if you don't select matching pieces, none of it will fit together or sit properly on the character model. Things like belts just float around your waist, and most of the options simply don't mesh together very well. It just ends up looking really odd, and some of the 2D details on the clothes are very low resolution. They just look really bad in general, and in fact, you'll notice some of the low resolution assets in other places throughout the game, like on this sword for example. This picture is taken from a pose at the end of a Muso attack, and it just looks bad. There's really no other way to put it. And I know this video is a little bit different to what I normally do. I usually give you positives and negatives and try to break things down a little bit differently, but for this video I really just wanted to get my proper feelings out there and not really script it too much. I think it is really important to say that I am genuinely a fan of the Warriors series. This is not just me picking a game and hating on it or anything like that. I've played, as I said, these games for over 20 years, and I really did like Samurai Warriors 5 despite a few shortcomings. And again, this is the thing. I've actually worked with Koei Tecmo and I've been granted review codes for some of their games. I really do genuinely appreciate the fact that they, a huge company, would give a channel as small as mine a review code at all. But at the risk of shooting myself in the foot here, I just have to and want to be honest. I need to call out bad business practices when I see them, and this game is not ready. It is not put together well, and it just feels broken. It feels very poor to play. I just think the engine that they use for this game is too limited in what it can do. It just isn't up to the task and needs to be, updated or just changed entirely. It just doesn't work. It's as simple as that, really. Maybe they could move to something like Unreal Engine 5 or something like that. Could you imagine if they actually took a step back for a little while and reimagined the series in Unreal 5? It could be something really special if they cared enough about it. My hope, my personal sort of dream would be A game that played more like Dynasty Warriors 3, 4, and 5, you know, that kind of era, but looked like a modern 2022 game and obviously had the up-to-date controls, plus of course all the positive additions that have been added to the series since, 3, 4, and 5. They could even go down the more cel-shaded route for the visuals like Samurai Warriors 5 did. If their team isn't up to the task of creating photorealistic characters, it could still be great. In fact, you know what? If Dynasty Warriors 9's assets looked far better, if it ran at a locked 60 FPS with no visual problems, like screen tearing and all that kind of stuff, it would at least be playable and, acceptable. As of right now though, all this demo tells me is that the game simply isn't ready for release, and I don't think it ever could be. The foundations of the game are sadly kind of rotten, there's nothing they can really do about it, and everything else is just held together by nothing more than the collective will of all the developers. Well, that, duct tape, chewing gum, and some band-aids probably, but you get what I'm trying to say. In fact, I've actually applied to Koei Tecmo to get a review code for Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires. However, I think if they actually grant it to me, I think I'm actually going to reject it and ask them to give it to someone else. I don't want to play this game for review. I really, really don't. Normally, I wouldn't jump to conclusions, but I've played the original Dynasty Warriors 9, and after playing the demo for Empires, I can see and feel the direction that they're taking. They're essentially doubling down on the greed while giving you, the customer, the player, as little as possible, and it's shameful. I don't know how many of you would know this, but the full Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires game is actually already on Steam, but it only supports Japanese language and Japanese text at the moment. I believe it's getting a translation when the console version of the game drops. But the reason that I'm telling you all this is because it's already got a season pass listed, and it's had over 700 reviews, which have resulted in a mixed rating. And as I said, this is all on Steam. When I last looked, it had a 49% positive rating, which I suppose you could look at as a 4.9 out of 10 if you care about scores in that way. So I think that just goes to show that the game is broken. They shouldn't be selling things like season passes and DLC and all this kind of stuff when the basic game doesn't work properly. I mean, sure, it works in the sense that you can turn the game on, you can get into the battles, and you can play the game. But it's so poorly executed. When playing it, you can literally feel the bones of the game creaking under what it's trying to do. But I think ultimately this is just depressing. Yet another great series that's been warped and twisted until it's unrecognizable from its former self. Sure, there'll be new players to the series who may actually love the game. The thing is though, that comes at the cost of the people like me who helped carry these games for the last 20 years. It's a shame, but I did like Samurai Warriors 5, so maybe there is some hope. For now though, if you're interested in picking this up, I would strongly recommend that you do some thorough research on the game and try the demo for yourself before making a purchase, if at all possible. And there you go, that's my initial thoughts and impressions of the Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires demo. You can get it right now on pretty much every system, so please try it before you buy it if you can. If you enjoyed the video, I really hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, and if you like what I do and want to offer your support, please check out the first link in the video description down below. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.